Help support AMTV by becoming a patron, an AMTV staff member, and following us over on Twitter.
Hi there guys, it's Adam Martyn here, and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about the Rugrats. Now, the Rugrats is one of those animated shows that I feel needs no introduction. It's been insanely popular over the past 30 years. It launched all the way back in 1991 and continued to be really popular throughout the 90s and 2000s. Now, I was born in 96, so I was the prime era, the prime demographic for this show during its heyday. I remember all the merchandise, the video games, the movies. It was a great show, this really simple concept of what if babies could actually talk amongst each other and go on these wacky adventures. Even though it featured these, toddler characters, it never really talked down to its audience. At least that's how I felt. It never really talked down to its audience. It dealt with some very difficult or serious concepts at points as well. So why am I talking about it today? Well, there's been a lot of talk of a certain reboot, and not just an animated reboot. A live-action hybrid Rugrats movie is in the works from Paramount and Pitch Perfect director Jason Moore. Now, this immediately pricked my ears up because Rugrats has indeed already had a reboot back in 2021, so it wasn't that long ago. It was a 3D-based CGI animated reboot. And full disclosure, I haven't seen any episodes of this reboot. I don't know if it's any good. I don't know if it's trash. Obviously, I saw a lot of people complaining about the designs and the look, because they've tried to sort of keep the same sort of art style and the look of the characters, but bringing it into 3D. It's a weird one. So why is this different? Well, live action, and I mean, if we're doing that, then they're going to be using CGI babies, which is just a bizarre image in my head. Like, I can't see that being appealing to watch. But let's break this article down. This is from Deadline. It says, everyone's favourite adventurous toddlers are getting the big screen treatment unlike any film or show in the franchise before, with sources telling Deadline that Rugrats, the classic Nickelodeon cartoon from the 90s, is getting a live-action/CGI feature adaptation with Jason Moore on board to direct. Saturday Night Live star Mikey Day co-wrote the script with Streeter Seidel. So we've got some SNL writers involved with this, and, I mean, full disclosure, I have seen clips of SNL before, and the humor, for me at least, personally, it's not great. Doesn't really make me laugh. So the news of that an SNL star has had hands on the script doesn't exactly set my world on fire. And the thing about CGI/live action, if the babies are going to be CGI, but then say the adults, the parents, are still just normal live action humans, that's just going to clash. Because let's face it, in any film, no matter how big the budget, I think you can always tell when something's CGI and when something's real. No matter how much money you sink into it, no matter how much, overlays or effects you put on it, you just know what's real and what's not. And considering this is applying to Rugrats, I just think it's going to be so jarring. The show was created by Arlene Klasky, Gabor Chupo, and Paul Germain. The series premiered in 1991, became one of the network's most popular series, following a group of toddlers, Tommy, Chucky, Phil, and Lil, and their day-to-day lives, usually involving life experiences that become much greater adventures for the foursome. As I said, very simple premise, but made it very entertaining to watch as a kid. The show would be rebooted, or well, just more seasons commissioned, in 1996 following 3 original seasons, and would go on to last through the 2000s. Its popularity led to 3 animated movies and a number of accolades, and it's gained a new life as a new generation discovers old episodes on streaming. Oh, the movies, Matt. We're going to talk about the movies a little bit later, just you wait. So in regards to this new feature film, it's going to be produced by Karen Rosenfeld, and Klasky and Chupo are also going to be producers on it as well. So at least the original creators have some sort of hand in this, which is always nice to see. It's always a bit jarring when original creators aren't involved with, their own works. Moore, as in Jason Moore, the Tony-nominated director and producer of film, TV, and theatre, seems like the ideal fit to bring these characters to life. His feature directional debut was Pitch Perfect, starring Anna Kendrick, Rebel Wilson, and Brittany Snow, and that was a critical and commercial success. He was exec producer on both of the sequels, and he also directed the 2015 Universal movie Sisters, which had Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, Maya Rudolph, and written by Paula Pell. Don't recognize that one. Let's have a look at some of Jason's work, shall we? Pitch Perfect I did watch watched back in the day when it came out. I mean, it was a fun little film, not one I'd necessarily go back to, and I never saw the sequels or anything like that, but I know a lot of people enjoyed that one. He's done a few episodes of Dawson's Creek directed, a few episodes of Everwood, an episode of One Tree Hill, classic show, Brothers and Sisters, a few episodes of Trophy Wife. It seems like he's also done quite a lot of theatre, which as an actor who's trained in theatre, I can respect that. His Broadway career began as a resident director of Les Miserables at the Imperial Theatre. That's a big show to kick your things off with. He directed Avenue Q when that opened off Broadway. Again, a really funny show. Definitely recommend that if you haven't seen it. And he was nominated for a Tony Award for that direction. Okay. And he's also helmed other things like the Broadway revival of Steel Magnolias, Shrek the Musical, another big name there. Directed the concert version of Jerry Springer, the opera, a very underrated show. Try and see that if you can. It's actually quite good. So I'm not questioning his skill as a director, not for a second. But I do wonder, with only 3 feature films under his directorial belt, and I'm assuming none of them have dealt with live-action CGI hybrid, I just wonder how this is going to turn out under his direction, shall we say? But this just brings me to the question, and I think it'll be the title of this video. Do we need another Rugrats reboot?
No.
And I think there's several reasons for this, partly because the last reboot was only a few years ago. As I said, the 3D animated reboot, which I think originally was meant to be Paramount Plus exclusive, but has since been moved to Nicktoons or something like that, that premiered in 2021. That was only 3 years ago, mind you. Just 3. And again, whether you call that show a success or not, I mean, I haven't seen any of it. You'd have to let me know. I've seen reviews that are all over the place. Some are really positive, some are really negative, critiquing not just, the look of it, but the story aspects as well. But the point being, Rugrats has had this high-profile reboot, so why do we need a film? Is it due to renewed interest? Well, even if they'd have done a film of this new 3D animated version, then I'd understand that a bit more, but yet another reboot? Do we really need to be introduced to these characters again? Because, yes, the original show is over 30 years old at this point, which also makes me feel pretty ancient. But I feel these characters, the core group at least anyway, Tommy, Chucky, Phil, Lil, Angelica, people know these characters, whether you grew up with them originally or younger generations who've maybe seen the animated reboot or have just gone back to watch the old episodes. A film sort of establishing who these kids are again, I don't know, man. It just seems so unnecessary. And also, these sort of live action remakes or live action CGI remakes, I'm not a big fan of anyway. I think Disney has soured me a lot to this because you'll know in the last decade, they've basically gone through their animated classics library and thought, let's do it in live action. And I don't think there's been one that I've wholeheartedly loved. I mean, the Jungle Book one was decent, Cinderella was decent, and Beauty and the Beast was decent to a degree. I just don't think they should have cast Emma Watson as Belle, to be frank. Then there was The Lion King. Now, The Lion King was one of my all-time favorite movies as a kid, as an adult. It's just great, the original 94 version. The live-action version is terrible, virtually a shot-for-shot remake with very little different. Anything that is different is markedly worse. And I can't believe we're getting a Mufasa prequel film. That's just, all logic has abandoned everybody now at this point. I'll probably end up watching it, but I'll be damned if I go and see it in the cinema, because why? And now they're doing a Lilo and Stitch one, which again is a really beloved film, not just to me, but to loads of people who remember that original from over 20 years ago. And they've soured it, honestly, they have. So even when it's non-Disney properties like Rugrats, we don't need this. The original series, whether you mean the first 3 seasons or just the run from, say, 91 to, when was it, 2004 it wrapped up, that is the GOAT. Those are the classics. And to be honest, there's no wonder new generations are discovering it, because I'd argue, even though the art style is really weird, it's quirky, and yes, it might be in a 4:3 ratio, the earlier stuff, but you could argue it also has a sort of timeless quality to it. Those episodes hold up really well. Of course, like in most cartoons, there are going to be some cultural references or some bits here and there that very much plant it of the era, but from what I remember, there wasn't really that much in classic Rugrats. I know in the 3D animated one, they've updated it to be set in the modern days, so the 2020s, which I think is actually probably a good idea that they chose to do that. And just to touch on this reboot and how well it's done, when you look on the Wikipedia for it, it says, on March the 28th, 2024, the series was removed from Paramount Plus as part of a strategic decision to focus on content with mass global appeal. Premieres had already moved to the Nicktoons channel on March the 14th. So, some they're saying that's strategic. Some were saying that was a sign of not just Rugrats, but the Paramount Plus service not doing very well. Read into that what you will. And I just think with Rugrats, you've just got to keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. A common criticism of the later series of the original run, so once we get into like post-2000, is that there were too many characters, too many situations being added. Because, of course, you had that original cast, like I said, back in the early days. Tommy, Chucky, Phil, Lil, Angelica as, like, the antagonist. You had Susie come in as, like, the helpful ally to the babies and stuff like that. And then, of course, you had all the parents. The first major shift in that would be in 1998 when we got Rugrats the movie. That introduced Dill, the younger brother to Tommy, so the youngest baby. So that's another addition to the cast. And Dill would become a regular in the show after that. And then in 2000, you had the second movie, Rugrats in Paris, which introduced Kimmy and her mother as well. And then they joined the fold regularly. And then you just have the Rugrats Meet the Wild Thornberrys or the Rugrats Go Wild from 2003. That film is bonkers. It's very aware of it, and it's very much happy to just lean full steam ahead. But it's great to see those two franchises come together because I love the Wild Thornberrys as well. I'm sure many of you do. And it's just a fun film. I think many would say the first film, the 98 one, is probably the better one because, again, it deals with some concepts that kids would find relatable, but it deals with them in a very mature way for the most part. Rugrats in Paris is very much just like a romp in Europe, as it were, but I love some of the different allusions to like different cliches, different themes here and there. Like the Godfather opening is iconic. Not that I realized it as a kid, but going back as an adult, it just comes out as being really, really funny. So there's 3 films already under its belt. And again, a new one. What's the story going to be? That's what I want to know. Like, are we starting with the bare cast of characters? You know, there's going to be no Dill, no Kimmy, nothing like that. Are we just going to have the core group? And then what's it going to be about? Because, you know, the first film was about Dill being born and them getting lost, etc. Rugrats in Paris was about them going to Paris, and then Rugrats Go Wild was about them again getting lost in a jungle and meeting the Wild Thornberrys. You know, it's simple stuff. It's not complicated. So a new film, I just hope it's not a retread. I don't want any of these stories to just be rehashed in a live action format. But again, why? That is the ultimate question. We don't need this. It's speaking to a wider problem in the film TV industry at the moment, that all these properties that I love, that you loved from the 90s and before, are just being rehashed for new generations. And don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with bringing an old property to a new generation. That has happened several times. It's happened several times successfully. However, I think we can all agree in the last 5-10 years, Hollywood has gone hell for leather about rehashing old things that were successful or have become beloved just to make money. And there are still original films being made, but I think in the realm of stuff primarily aimed at children, both on TV and film, we're really being squeezed like that at the minute. I am glad, though, that we have companies like DreamWorks. The Wild Robot is coming out at the time I'm making this, and that's had excellent reviews, this new original story. And I think that's what we need to try and pump out more. I know they're more financially risky, but did anyone really ask for a live-action CGI reboot of the Rugrats? Did anyone? Did you? Because I sure didn't. If they do go with this, you always have to wait and see what the final product is. Just because we don't like the sound of it, it might end up being quite good or really enjoyable to watch. But until I see it, I'm going to be a little bit skeptical. And I still just don't think it's unnecessary. You're doing another reboot or announcing one or teasing one 3 years after your last one that seemingly didn't do all that well. Come on, guys. But that is all for this video. Let me know what you think. Do you think a Rugrats live-action CGI reboot is a good idea, or do you think this is just a waste of time? This is just Hollywood moving in its cogs again, just rehashing old properties for the sake of it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. It really does help us out. And subscribe to the channel if you're new as well, because we'd love to have you aboard. In the meantime, I've been Martyn from AMTV. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Thank you to our patrons for helping to support the show, and a special thank you to Macra, Bruce Danton, Derek Chambers, Shaun Knock, Daud Khan, Liam De-Maine, Trev Hughes, Ajmac 200017, Deck, Evonne Hart41, Jen, Traffi, Tim Ripley, Mr. Eurovision 1986, Ted Elliott, Marnanel Thurman, John Wakefield, Kieran Bolton, and 40-something Manchild, our AMTV staff members.